Hey, y'all, welcome back to the Straight No Chaser podcast, where I don't sugarcoat it. I don't water it down, and I sure don't give you the bootleg version, right? I'm your host, Bishop, and I appreciate you being here with me today. Now, before I get into it, of course, you already know you can catch me on Patreon, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok. Wherever you listen, if you're a part of the Patreon family, you get the raw, uncut conversations that don't make it to the mainstream platforms. That's where the real table talk happens. And if you don't want to miss it, Patreon is where you need to be. Now, today we're talking about something that's been sitting heavy on my spirit because every time I do an episode about escape, leaving America, walking away from the grind, finding freedom somewhere else, I get messages every time. And y'all say the same thing to me. You say, Bishop, I would love to leave, but that's not realistic for me. I hear you. Because for a lot of people, escape doesn't mean hopping on a flight and never looking back. It doesn't mean packing up your family, your grandma, your mortgage, and your kids' school projects and relocating to Bali. That's Instagram escape. That's fantasy escape. The kind of escape we're talking about today is different. It's real and it's practical. It's survival. And it's called building a parallel life. Now, see, America loves to sell you an illusion. They love to say, if you don't like it here, leave. I know you've heard that. Oh, I've heard it plenty. And let me tell you something. That's the biggest scam of all time. Biggest. Because most people don't have the money, the access, or even the desire to just up and leave. And truthfully, let's keep it all the way a buck. Right? For a lot of folks, it's not even about economics. Some people are tired here by family, by obligations, by health issues, by roots so deep that no passport stamp can rip them out the soil. That's the truth. So when America says leave, what they really mean is shut up and take what we give you. They mean fall in line, get back to work, stop complaining, and convince yourself that you're blessed just to be here. But let me tell you, it's a psychological trap, bigly. Because it keeps you thinking your only options are one, to love it, or two, to leave it. When in reality, there is a third option. You can parallel it. Now, I know some of you are saying, what you mean by parallel? What I mean is you build a life inside this system that fully doesn't belong to the system. A life that allows you to survive within America without refusing to live by America. Think of it like running two programs on your computer at one time. The system wants you locked into their program where you work until you die, you pay taxes into oblivion, you give your whole life away to bills, student loans, and health insurance premiums. But at the same time, you can run your own program in the background. That's your parallel life. That's where you choose joy, community, and survival strategies that don't depend on what the government or corporations hand to you. Now, don't get me wrong, this ain't new. Marginalized people have been doing this forever. Black folks built parallel economies and communities when segregation told us we couldn't have access. Immigrants built their own grocery stores, own churches, their own systems of support when the mainstream shut them out. Even poor white people in Appalachia and rural towns built informal networks of barter, trade, and mutual aid. Parallel living has always been the quiet rebellion of people who realize the system will never love them back. Now, see, America doesn't want you to think like this, though. I need you to understand that. America wants you to believe you either live in the dream or you don't. And if you don't, well, that's your own fault, right? They love telling you to bootstrap your life. Baby, I done bootstrapped so hard, the straps have snapped. And guess what? The system still ain't working for me. So what now? That's where building this parallel life comes in. It's about saying, I'll play your game enough to survive, but I'm not about to let your game consume me. I'll do what I need to keep the lights on, but my joy, my health, my family, my community belong to me, not your system. So in this podcast, we're going to talk about this. We're going to dig into this. Why are parallel lives necessary? How are people building financial, social, and political alternatives? The role of technology in creating these digital parallel worlds. And of course, the challenges, because there will be, because let's be real, living parallel is not easy, but it is necessary. But my hope is that by the end of this conversation, you'll see that escape doesn't always mean a one-way ticket. Sometimes escape is mental. Sometimes escape is spiritual. Sometimes escape is just carving out enough room to breathe while the system is trying to choke you out. And maybe, just maybe, you realize you don't have to wait for permission to start building your parallel life. Because trust me, you're going to need it. So let's get into it. Let's talk about why parallel lives are necessary, why staying tied to America doesn't mean being trapped by America. Right? Because some of y'all are still waiting to make decisions about what's going on. You're sitting around like America's going to wake up one day and say, my bad. Here's free health care, debt forgiveness, and a 4-day work week. That's not going to happen. Okay? This country is not your boyfriend. It's not going to change because you stuck it out long enough. And the longer you wait, the more stuck you get. See, America has this trap of permanence. It teaches you to sit tight, to hold on, because something better is coming. A new president, some new law, some new stimulus check. But while you're waiting on that miracle, the rent is still due. Sally Mae's still emailing you like a clingy ex. And the cost of eggs is still disrespectful. And what's worse is this game isn't neutral. It's not like you're standing still waiting, while the system figures itself out. No. While you're waiting, you're sinking deeper. You're getting more entangled. Your student loans are compounding. Your health is deteriorating. Your wages aren't keeping up. Waiting is not free. It costs you money. And that's the setup. Now let's talk about these systems real quick because America is slick. They put a shiny label on exploitation and call it opportunity. Yeah, it's called student loans. They tell you it's about education. Oh, but I got some reality for you. The reality is it's about permanent servitude. They designed it so you never really pay it off. They want you in debt so you're obedient, docile, willing to work whatever job they put in front of you because you're scared to default. It's the leash they put around your neck and call it a diploma. Healthcare. Don't get me started on healthcare, y'all. They don't heal you, they bill you. And they bill you like you just bought a brand new Tesla, but all you did was sprain your ankle. Healthcare in America isn't about healthcare. It's about extraction. They're not giving you health. They're taking your money while you pay and pray you don't get sick again. Housing, you spend half your paycheck, sometimes more, just to keep a roof over your head. Just to keep a roof. And we're not talking about a mansion. not the dream house HGTV promised you, right? We're talking about four walls with neighbors stomping upstairs and maintenance never fixing your heat. Housing is supposed to be a right, y'all. But here it's another way to drain you. Wages, jobs, that job. You know, that stood for, when I was coming up, that stood for just over broke. That's what job stood for. Because that's the point. They're not paying you to thrive. They're paying you just enough so you keep showing up. Right? Enough to buy lunch, enough to keep the lights on, but not enough to breathe. That's not an accident. It's design. And because of all of that, we stay on the grind. But here's the thing. Grinding 24/7 comes with a cost that no paycheck can cover. Because it leads to chronic stress. And chronic stress doesn't just play with your mind. It lives inside of your body. You're going to be anxious all the time. You're going to be depressed. But you can't slow down long enough to admit it. See, you're irritable, snapping at your kids, your partner, hell, even the dog. And it's not even their fault. But you can't focus because your memory is shot. You can't sleep right. Or when you do, you're exhausted anyway. Your eating is off. Some of you not eating at all. And others eating everything in sight. And the worst part is, it steals your joy, man. You forget what it feels like to have a purpose beyond clocking in. Your morale drops, your spirit is crushed, and eventually, you start pulling away from the very people who could hold you up. All because you've been told that grinding is the only way to prove you're worthy. But worthy of what? Worthy of staying broke? Worthy of keeping up with bills you didn't ask for? What it is madness, y'all. And I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of irony in here because, it's rich, right? See, America will call you lazy if you rest, but it will also call you a fool when you work yourself into a grave. Yeah, you can't win their game, so you stop trying. They tell you to hustle harder, but the truth is the hustle don't come with health insurance. Boom. The grind don't protect your spirit. And this nonsense of if you work hard, you'll get ahead. Child, some of the hardest working people I know are still choosing between rent and groceries. Meanwhile, folks who inherited money are hard at work on vacation in the Maldives. That's why I say if leaving isn't an option, and for most people it isn't, I'm well aware of that, you gotta stop waiting and start building. You gotta figure out what staying in your own terms and on your own terms means like. I said means like, looks like. That's what parallel life is about. It's not running away. It's refusing to let the system script every line in your story. It's survival with dignity. That's what it is. It's saying, yeah, I'll play the game just long enough to keep the lights on, but I'm not giving you my soul. Because without a parallel life, you end up drained, docile, waiting on miracles that never come. But with a parallel life, a real one, you reclaim some of that control. You get it back. You carve out spaces where you breathe. You protect your joy. You build your own systems of support, financial, emotional, spiritual, that don't require America's permission. And that, my people, is survival. So let's be clear. Parallel living ain't about luxury. It's about necessity. It's about making sure that while the system is trying to strip you, you're still building something that belongs to you. Something that sustains you, even when America doesn't. Now that we've laid this foundation on why parallel lives are necessary, we're going to get into the history of them. Because I told you, this ain't new. Our people been doing this. Black people specifically. Immigrant communities been doing it. Poor folks been doing it. And there are lessons we can learn from the ones who've already been here before us. Now let's zoom in for a second because I want y'all to understand something. This whole new idea of building a parallel life is a unique but not new concept, and it's worked. It ain't me being creative, or trendy. This is survival that's been happening in America since the very beginning. Whenever people have been shut out, whenever people have been told, you can't have access, we've built our own. And that's where the lessons come. They come in for all of us. Now let's start with Black communities because, baby, we've been professionals at creating parallel economies. Professionals at it. Not because we wanted to, but because we had no damn choice. See, during segregation, we weren't allowed to walk into white businesses, banks, or hospitals and expect service. So what did we do? We built our own. We established entire ecosystems, banks, insurance companies, funeral homes, hospitals, retail stores, restaurants, you name it, we had to make it for ourselves. Think about it. Chicago had Bronzeville. Atlanta had Sweet Auburn. Detroit had Black Bottom. St. Louis had the Ville. These weren't just neighborhoods. These were thriving Black business districts. We had a closed economic loop where the dollar stayed in the community. You needed health care? You went to a Black doctor. You needed life insurance? Black-owned companies had you. Somebody passed away? Black funeral homes were there. Everything was in-house because white America didn't let us in their house. And you know the gag. The gag is those communities thrived. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. They were vibrant, cultural, self-sustaining. Until, of course, because there's an until, white America realized we were doing too well and came in with highways, redlining, and bulldozers to wipe it all out. But the lesson is clear. We built parallel lives because the main system never intended for us to belong. And if we did it then, we can do it now. Now let's talk about immigrants because they've been doing the same thing. When immigrants come to America, 9 times out of 10, the welcome mat is missing. They're going to face discrimination, language barriers, and locked out opportunities. But what do? They build. They build. They settle in areas where existing support networks recreate familiar cultural environments and build businesses and places of worship that reflect home. You've got Chinatowns in San Francisco and New York. You've got Little Italy, Little Havana, Koreatown. These aren't just tourist attractions, they're survival systems. They create grocery stores where you can buy the food you grew up with. Restaurants where you can hear your language, temples, mosques, churches that give you spiritual and social grounding. and they create jobs within those communities. So they don't have to depend on mainstream acceptance. And here's the kicker. While building their own parallel systems, they also end up enriching American culture. The food you eat, the music you hear, the slang you use, half of it comes from immigrant parallel communities. The irony is that America pushes people out, then later brags about the culture that those same people created in spite of exclusion. Now, don't think this is just about Black folks and immigrants, because poor and rural white communities been doing the same thing. Because poverty doesn't care what color you are. If the system shuts you out, you got to figure out your own survival. In a lot of rural America, whole economies were built around bartering, cash work, and unlicensed services. You couldn't get to the bank? Fine. Somebody in town gonna loan you money informally. No child care? That's okay. The neighbor down the road took in kids while the parents worked. You need some food? People sold it on the roadside. Straight from the farm, directly to you. I lived in a community for about 20 or 30 years. This is about 20, 30 years ago, I'm sorry. Where the corner store did more for folks than FedEx ever did. You could get your packages delivered there and pick them up long before Amazon even had the locker situation. They were already doing this. They were selling cigarettes by the singles when you couldn't afford the whole pack. They were already doing it. They were running childcare out the back room, braiding hair in the kitchen, cutting grass, and doing odd jobs on a barter system. That's what my old community was doing. I'll cut your lawn if you fix my car. That's parallel living. That's survival. And bartering? Let me tell y'all, bartering is the original hustle. See, folks forget about bartering. See, you don't always have to have cash. Because if you don't have a cash, no problem. Because if you got skills, you got goods, you got labor, you trade what you got to get what you need. That's how communities stayed alive. Somebody fixed cars, somebody cooked, somebody braided hair, somebody cut grass. Money wasn't always there, but survival always was. And if you really think about it, these systems never went away. They're just quieter now because we've been told everything has to be licensed, taxed, and regulated. But truth be told, the underground economy is alive and well. Alive and well. So what's the lesson here when you hear me talk about this? What's the lesson? The lesson is people have always built survival systems outside the mainstream. Whether you were Black in Bronzeville, Italian in Little Italy, Chinese in San Francisco, or poor in Appalachia, if the system said no, you built your own yes. And the same is true today. Because here's the reality. If you don't build it for you and your community, you'll get pushed out of what's available. The system will never prioritize your survival, beautiful. It will never prioritize but I'm going to tell you, and it'll never prioritize your family, but it will prioritize your exploitation. So parallel living isn't some cute idea I cooked up, right? It's tradition. It's history. It's what our people have always done. It's in our DNA. It's in our history. And the only way we made it through before was by creating systems for ourselves. That's the blueprint. Now, I know you're thinking, how do we do it in today's world? I'm going to tell you, you got to do it by building a parallel financial life. Because if money is the leash America keeps around your neck, then financial independence, even in small ways, is how you loosen it. Okay? Now, I know that, we talked about a lot of pieces of this, like the history, the money, how it's a necessity. But I want to be real with y'all on something in all of this. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have people, you still gonna be empty. That's why building that parallel social life is just as important too, as that financial or that political side. Because survival is more than bills. It's about belonging, that sense of community. It's about knowing you got somebody to call when the world is falling apart. And I'm going to say this off the bat, you get to choose who's in this parallel social life with you. That's the beauty of it too. You're not required to take along everybody. This ain't about bloodlines. This ain't about who grew up down the street. This is about the chosen family, the people you trust, the people you can depend on, because not everybody deserves access. Not everybody will get an invitation. You need your own circle of trust. Y'all remember that Meet the Fockers movie? How Robert De Niro had that little circle? And if you were outside of it, you weren't getting in. That's how you got to treat your social life. This parallel social life, you need people who are in your circle of trust. People who won't exploit you, won't use you, won't drain you. This is the time to build that chosen family. That might be friends who become sisters, neighbors who become aunties and uncles, co-workers who turn into confidants. You decide who's in, because once you decide, you protect the circle. Because if you don't, the system will chew you up and spit you out. I'm trying to tell you, it'll be the people closest to you doing that chewing. That's why it's imperative that you got that circle of trust and you decide who gets to be in it and who doesn't. Because the reality is, the state is not coming to save you. The government is not coming to save you. This government barely wants to give you paid leave to take care of your newborn. You think they care about who's going to look after grandma when she can't cook for herself? Please. That's why your parallel social life has to include support systems like childcare networks, so you're not alone when you need to work, rest, or just breathe. Elder care, because aging parents and grandparents need dignity too. Healthcare support, even if it's informal. A nurse in the neighborhood who checks blood pressure. Someone who knows holistic remedies. People who run errands when you're down. That's what community used to look like before we outsourced everything to corporations. And let me tell you, when the state fails you, and it will fail you, that parallel network is what's going to keep you standing. Now, here's the part I love is building a parallel social life. You get to reclaim your joy because, see, capitalism stripped that from us. They told us community is outdated, that cookouts are childish, that you don't have time to gather because you should be grinding. Nah, baby, we need those backyard gatherings. We need those block parties. We need the cookouts where the grill is going, the music is playing, everybody's auntie is telling you to get another plate. We need that. We need spiritual circles where people are praying for you, meditating with you, speaking life into you. We need mutual aid, where if somebody's light bill is short, the community covers it without judgment. Those things, they're not just nostalgia, they're survival. They feed your spirit. They remind you that you're not alone. And in a society that isolates you on purpose, reclaiming that joy is an act of resistance. Now I got to get extra heavy for a minute here. Because we live in a society that does not give a damn about your mental health. None. This system doesn't care if you're stressed, that you're traumatized, that you're exhausted from carrying the weight of survival every single day. They don't care. And that's why this parallel social life matters. When you create these networks, when you build this chosen family, you're protecting your mind as much as your body. You're creating spaces where you don't have to perform, where you don't have to smile when you're hurting, where you don't have to explain yourself. You can just be. That kind of protection, that's crucial because your mental health is the foundation of your quality of life. Without it, nothing else stands. Not the money, not the job, not the grind. A parallel social life is about making sure you don't lose yourself in the chaos of this hyper capitalist, hyper isolating society. America will throw community at you in commercials. It will. Oh, they love that word when they're selling you sneakers or a new cell phone plan. Join the community. Be a part of the family. But when you need help, silence. Ain't no community then. That's why you can't let corporations or politicians define what community is. You define it. You build it. You protect it because your sanity depends on it. Building a parallel social life is not about being popular. It's about being protected. It's about knowing that when the system fails, and trust me, it will, you have your circle, your chosen family, your backyard, your cookout, your spiritual circle to hold you up. And if you don't have that yet, start building it now. I keep saying that. Choose your circle wisely. Invest in those relationships. Because money can keep the lights on, but the people keep the soul lit. Now we're going to dig into building this political parallel life. Because let me tell you, traditional politics is not designed to save you either. And if you don't create your own political power, you'll keep waiting for change that never comes. I know half of you already rolling your eyes because you're tired. You're sick of the campaigns. You're sick of the promises, the debates, the mess. But hear me clearly. Traditional politics is not designed to save you. It never has been and it never will be. It's designed to protect. Traditional politics are designed to protect the rich and the powerful. It's not designed to protect the working class folks, poor folks, single moms, people living paycheck to paycheck, people drowning in medical bills. That is not the purpose. The purpose is to make sure the corporations are fed, the wealthy are protected, and the power structure remains intact. That's why you keep waiting on change that never comes. That's why every 4 years you get the same speech in a different suit. They're not coming to save you because the system was never designed for your survival anyway. It was designed to exploit you. And when you keep waiting, you do yourself a disservice. You set yourself up for heartbreak every election cycle, hoping somebody's going to finally put the people first. Newsflash, they won't. And the longer you wait on that miracle, the longer you stay stuck in their game. So if politics isn't the answer, what is? Local organizing. That's where the real power is. You want food security? You're going to have to do a food drive in your community. You want safety? Organize a neighborhood watch that actually protects instead of polices, because there's a difference. You want worker dignity? Collective bargaining. Unions, baby. That's how change happens. From the ground up, not from the top down. That's how it happens. You don't beg Washington to care. You don't sit around waiting for the mayor to have an epiphany. You build your own political power right where you are. Because local organizing means survival at your own terms. Now, let's talk about this digital activism because we live in a different time. The internet changed the game. You can organize whole movements online now. You can dismantle lies with receipts in real time. Y'all, hashtags have brought attention to issues politicians tried to bury. Now, but there's a flip side to all of it, right? The internet is also full of trolls, bots, and government surveillance. That's why it's important to build safe havens, digital spaces where activists can connect without harassment. Communities can find support, share resources, they can strategize. But you got to be smart about it. You got to use secure tools like Signal. Protect yourself with VPNs. Maintain separate identities. Create pseudonyms. Don't link everything back to your personal accounts. Because the government is watching. And corporations are watching too. They want your data. They want your habits, your conversations. Don't give them anything. Because, see, digital activism comes with risk. Misinformation will spread lies, and lies always travel faster than truth. And it can mess with your mental health. That's why you got to be careful where you spend that energy online. The same anonymity that creates safe spaces can also create chaos. Because all of it exists to distract, divide, and discourage you. And young people especially get caught in that trap because they think every post is real, every page is authentic. But understand this. Most platforms prioritize profits over your safety. They don't care about your mental health. They care about ad revenue. Ad revenue. And if you want real change, you got to look for decentralized alternatives, independent spaces where the priority is community, not profit. That's where you can build that digital political power without being trapped in the nonsense. Now, I'm going to drop a gem to you. Sometimes the powerful political act you can do is by opting out. Just withdraw your energy from systems that only take. You don't have to spend money in places that don't respect you. You don't have to give your time, your clicks, your labor, or your vote to systems that exploit you. That withdrawal, that resistance, because the system depends on you feeding it, see. And if you stop feeding it, even in small ways, you reclaim your power. That might mean supporting local farmers instead of big box grocery chains. That might mean shopping at Black-owned businesses. That might mean refusing to engage in political theater that just doesn't serve you. And understand, this isn't about apathy. This is about strategy. You're not checking out. You're checking in with your own power. You're deciding where your energy goes. That's power. Trust me, it matters. Because at the heart of a parallel political life is community. You need supportive communities that lift you up, not tear you down. Spaces that resist exploitation, online and offline. Because parallel politics isn't about building a new government. It's about building new ways of caring for each other. It's food drives, it's safe houses, it's mutual aid funds. It's online spaces where truth is protected, not manipulated. It's the collective saying, we are not waiting for permission to live, to resist, to survive. And you know the irony? Politicians love to say the people have the power. Baby, if that was true, half of them would have been unemployed tomorrow. What they really mean is the people have the power to keep us in power. Don't get it twisted. So don't sit around waiting for them to save you. Save yourself. Save your community. That's where the real politics lives. So traditional politics is a trap. It's designed to keep the rich rich and the poor hopeful. But building a parallel political life, That's through local organizing, digital activism, safe havens, supportive communities, and even opting out if you got to. That's where you're going to find your real power. And the more we practice that, the less dependent we are on a system that never loved us to begin with. Okay? Never loved us to begin with. Now we're going to get into the digital side of things because you're going to need help there. Because whether you like it or not, the technology is here. And it's not just here, it runs your life. Your job applications, your bank account, your shopping, your entertainment, all of it is filtered through screens. Now here's the real question, right? Do you use tech or does tech use you? Because in a parallel life, the digital world is a tool. It's not your master. It's not your babysitter. It's not your big brother keeping tabs on every click. So let's break down how you build a parallel digital world that works for you instead of exploiting you. First thing, stop acting like Amazon is the only store on earth. I know that free 2-day shipping feels good, but at what cost? Every time you hit place order, you're feeding a $1 trillion company that doesn't pay fair wages, kills small businesses, and tracks every detail of your spending habits. Parallel living means shifting how you spend your money. That's what that means. Support online marketplaces that aren't just mega corporations, right? Buy directly from community-based sellers. Check out decentralized platforms where small creators and businesses thrive without being swallowed up by the machine. And let's be honest, this isn't about just money. It's about survival. Every dollar you spend on Amazon makes Jeff Bezos richer. Every dollar you spend in your community makes your community strong. Which one do you want to build? Real talk. Which one you want to build? Next up, you got to talk about your information, where you're getting it. That mainstream media, baby, that's not news. That's investor reports with a side of propaganda. They're not telling you what's true. They're telling you what keeps the shareholders happy. So what's the alternative? Podcasts, Substack newsletters, independent creators who are not funded by billionaires or big corporations. That's where you're going to find the raw, unfiltered perspectives. But, this is a big but, you got to be careful. Because just like I told you before, alternative doesn't always mean accurate. The same freedom that lets independent creators tell the truth also lets grifters and liars spread misinformation. So what do? You're going to have to dig. You're going to have to do your research. You're going to have to compare sources. Don't just believe it because somebody said it with confidence in a nice microphone. Due diligence is your responsibility, especially in a parallel life where the mainstream won't do it for you. Now we're going to have to deal with this surveillance issue because when you're dealing with tech, it's a part of it, right? We all know big tech is nosy. They want your clicks, your habits, your private messages, and they're building profiles on you because they want to sell that data, right? And they're watching you like a hawk. And what do you give in return? What do they give you? A free app. That's it. But that app ain't free. Not when it's costing you your privacy. But you don't have to sell your soul just to stay connected. Use technology wisely. Use encrypted apps like Signal instead of letting Meta read your DMs. Use VPNs so your local isn't tracked every time you breathe, like your location and stuff. Don't give every app permission to raid your contacts, your photos, your microphone, or your entire existence. It is okay to use tech to make your life easier. But it's not okay to let companies surveil your every move in exchange for convenience. That's like selling your diary for a free slice of pizza. You getting robbed and fed at the same time. Now I'm going to tell you where it gets a little tricky though. Because see, some of these so-called independent platforms, they're wolves in sheep's clothing. They show up and say we're different, We're not like the mainstream, but they say we're unbiased. We don't push propaganda. Baby, right there is propaganda. Because in the moment somebody tells you they're neutral, most times they're lying. Everybody has an angle. Everybody. Everybody has a narrative. The question is, do their words match their actions? If somebody claims to be independent, but their investors look suspiciously like the same old billionaire class, you already know what time it is. If their platform is built on the same data mining, ad driven model as Facebook or Google, they're not your savior. They're the same machine with a fresh coat of paint. So what do? You trust your gut. You use your instincts. You ask, does what they say align with what they do? And if it doesn't, you don't waste your time. You walk away. Because in this digital parallel world, your attention is currency. Don't spend it where it's being stolen. Okay? Because technology can either be a chain around your neck or a tool in your hand. It depends on how you use it. Build your this digital parallel life through online marketplaces and decentralized communities. Get your information from independent sources, but do your homework so you don't get played. Use tech to connect and organize, but protect your privacy at all costs. And never, ever fall for the false narratives that look independent but feed the same machine. Because in this digital age, the fight for freedom isn't just in the streets, it's in your browser, your apps, your inbox. The parallel digital world is where we carve out spaces that belong to us, not corporations. Okay? And it can really happen. Now, I know I've talked a lot in theory, but I want to give y'all some real world examples, right? I want to give you to show you how in real life this works. Let's start with a single mom because she's the blueprint for survival in America, right? She goes to a 9 to 5, but we already know that 9 to 5 stands for just over broke, right? We talked about what those jobs are. It covers the basics, but barely. Rent eats half her check. Childcare swallows the rest. And then she's supposed to figure out groceries, gas, and maybe a minute to breathe. So what does she do? She starts a side hustle. That's her parallel life. It's not about luxury, it's survival. It's that extra $300 that keeps the lights on when inflation acts up. And in some cases, that side hustle grows so big it surpasses her 9 to 5. Now she's not just surviving, she's thriving on her own terms. That's a parallel life in action. Another example of that, neighborhoods, right? Because you can do a parallel life as a collective. I've seen communities pool money together for groceries. Think about it. Instead of 10 families separately struggling to afford food, they can chip in in bulk and buy in bulk and share it. It stretches the dollar further. But it doesn't stop there. Some communities buy buildings together. I've seen that. Buy apartment complexes, houses on the block. Imagine that. Instead of a hedge fund swooping in and raising the rent, the community owns the building. The tenants become the landlords. The power dynamic flips. That's not just survival, it's resistance. Because it says we don't need Wall Street deciding whether we have a roof over our head or not. We decide that. And that's the very definition of parallel life running alongside the system instead of trapped inside of it. Now let's shift to that digital world. Online creators are another example. You've got folks who clock in at a 9 to 5, miserable, drained, making just over broke wages, and then go home and start creating content. Podcasts, TikToks, YouTube videos, Substack newsletters. At first, it's a hobby, a little creative outlet. But over time, it becomes an income stream. Sponsorships, affiliate marketing, subscriptions, merch. And before they know it, the side hustle is bigger than the main hustle. They built a parallel career outside of the system that said, work till you're 70, then we'll let you retire, and maybe you'll get to enjoy a little bit of your life before you die. Content creators are showing us every day that parallel income isn't just possible, it's powerful. And that doesn't mean everybody's going to be an influencer. I want to be clear on that. But it does mean everybody has something they can build outside of a 9-to-5 grind. So here's the question I want you to sit with. What would it look like for you to build something that runs alongside the system instead of inside of it? Maybe it's a side hustle. Maybe it's a collective project in your neighborhood. Maybe it's a digital platform where you share your knowledge or creativity. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be yours. Because once it's yours, the system doesn't own it. And when the system doesn't own it, they don't own you. See, every story I just told you matters because it reminds us that parallel living is not a dream. It's not far off. It's happening right now. Single moms are doing it. Neighborhoods are doing it. Creators are doing it. People are finding ways every day to survive within the system without being swallowed up whole by it. And if they can do it, you can too. The question is whether it's possible. And the question is, will you take the first step to build your parallel life? Now, listen, I know that there are going to be challenges in this. I don't want to present you with this false sense of hope that it's just going to be easy to live a parallel life. It's not. But if it was easy, everybody would do it. But it is worth it, right? It's going to be challenges, but if you don't face these challenges head on, you're going to burn yourself out trying to escape the very thing you're trying to survive. So we're going to walk through a couple of the biggest challenges of parallel living. Not to scare you, but to prepare you. Now, one of the biggest risks is burnout. We already know America grinds us down. That's why we're talking about parallel living in the first place. But this is the thing. You can't take that same grind mentality and transfer it right over into your parallel life. I mean, I said you can't, but you can take it. But then you're going to be right back in the same mess if you do. You're going to just be left with one hamster wheel only to build another one. You went from being exhausted by your 9-to-5 to being exhausted by your side hustle, by your barter network, by your organizing work. And that defeats the whole point. And then you're going to stop. You're going to give up. That's why you got to find what I call the secret sauce, that perfect fusion between the system and the parallel life. And you only find it through trial and error. You try, you test, you adjust. You keep what works, you drop what doesn't. You don't go too far to one extreme because you can lean too heavy on either side. It can break you. Balance is survival. Then there becomes this pressure of living two lives. Let's be honest. Sometimes it feels like you've got 2 full-time jobs. Your official life inside the system, where you clock in, you pay bills, doing what you got to do. But then you got that parallel life where you're building your hustle, nurturing your community networks, protecting your mental health, and living on your own terms. That can get exhausting. And if you don't manage it, it will eat you alive. You're going to feel torn in 2 directions, like you're never fully present in either world. And that's dangerous because it can leave you discouraged, overwhelmed, and ready to quit. And you've got to pace yourself. Give yourself permission to rest. Understand that parallel living is not about doing more. It's about doing it different. It's not about doubling your workload. It's about diversifying your survival. And that last piece you got to deal with is the legal and safety concerns, because there will be when you live outside the system. Sometimes what you're building is in a gray area. And maybe you're cutting hair without a license. Maybe you're selling food out of your kitchen. Maybe you're running a hustle that technically breaks some zoning law or regulation. And in those cases, at any point, the system can come in and shut it down. They can fine you, they can harass you, or outright criminalize you. And even when it's legal, you're still not guaranteed safety. Look at history. Look at Tulsa. Black Wall Street was bombed and burned because the mainstream didn't like the idea of black people thriving outside of white control. It was legal, it was flourishing, but it was still destroyed. That doesn't mean don't try. It means go into it with your eyes open. Be smart, protect yourself, document everything. Build resilience so that if one system fails, another one can rise. Because parallel living isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. And then finally, the big thing you got to learn to do is navigate balance. You have to figure out how to work within the system just enough to survive it, but not so much that the system owns you. That's a thin line to walk. You pay what you need to pay, you use what you need to use, but you don't become dependent. Because the moment you become dependent, they've got you back under control. Parallel living is about flourishing outside the system, not just surviving. It's about creating joy, wealth, freedom on your own terms. But to do that, you've got to constantly adjust the balance between what you take from the system and what you build outside of it. And that balance isn't easy. It's a lifelong negotiation. But you know what, y'all? It's worth it. Because the alternative is giving everything to a system that will never give it back to you. So yes, parallel living has risk, burnout, exhaustion of living two lives, legal and safety concerns, this constant balancing act. But don't let those risks scare you. Let them prepare you. Because the truth is, the system we're in now is too risky. Staying 100% dependent on it is dangerous. And we see it every day with foreclosures, layoffs, medical bankruptcies. That shit is risky. Parallel living gives you another path. And if you're willing to face the risk, manage them, and keep adjusting, you can build that life that is not just survival, it thrives. Now we're going to talk about some practical steps that you can take right now to start building that parallel life. Because theory is good, history is good, stories are good, but you need a plan. All right? Now, the first thing you got to do is build community. And I don't mean swapping business cards at some networking event where everybody's pretending to care. I mean real relationships. You got to have real conversations with people. And you got to listen, right? You got to show up. Because a contact will send you a link. But community will send you dinner when you broke. A contact will ask you what you do. But community asks how you doing. So get intentional. Who do you want in your circle of trust? Who do you know that you can depend on? Who can depend on you? That's where you start. Build real community, not just contacts. Because when the system fails, and it will, it's the people around you that will catch you, not your LinkedIn connections. Second, you got to diversify those income streams. You cannot, I repeat, cannot rely on one way to make money. That's a fool's errand. Jobs. What did I tell you about jobs? Jobs mean just over broke. That paycheck is not designed to keep you afloat nor to set you free. If you only have one stream, they holding you hostage. Your boss fires you, your hours get cut, inflation kicks in, boom, you drowning. But if you got multiple streams, you're flexible, you're resilient, that could mean a side hustle, freelance work, selling digital products, doing hair on the weekends, flipping items online, creating content, tutoring, anything. I don't care what it is. As long as it's legal and ethical, you find a way to add another stream. And can I be honest? Sometimes it won't be legal or ethical. Find your income stream. Because multiple streams mean nobody can fully control you. And that's what a parallel life is all about. Not being owned. Third, you got to find and create them safe spaces. And if you can't find one, create it. Maybe it's an online group where people share resources and knowledge. Maybe it's a local meetup for folks who want to barter skills. Maybe it's a community garden, a book club, a support circle, a childcare swap. Don't wait for somebody else to build it. If you know you need it, chances are 10 other people around you need it too. And this is the kicker. Building these spaces also can become an income stream. You create a digital community and it grows. That's Patreon, Substack, memberships, events. That's survival and sustainability. Safe spaces are the backbone of a parallel life because mainstream spaces are built for profit, not for protection. Your spaces, those can actually serve you. 4, and this one right here might be the most important, to protect your mental health the way you protect your money. A lot of y'all spend more time guarding your bank accounts, your credit cards, your house, your car than you do guarding your mind. But let me tell you something. You can lose all those things and rebuild. If you lose your mental health, it's 10 times harder to climb back. This system is designed to stress you out, depress you, make you feel like you're failing when you're fighting like hell. That's why you got to prioritize your mental health as much as your hustle. Therapy, journaling, prayer, meditation, boundaries, whatever works for you, do it. Because your quality of life depends on it. Now I'm going to ask you directly because I don't want this to just be me talking. I want you to actually think about this. What's the one system in your life you could build outside of capitalism right now? Maybe it's a barter exchange with your neighbor. Maybe it's a side hustle you've been putting off. Maybe it's joining forces with a friend to create a shared resource. Pick one and start. And who in your circle could you partner with to build something small and parallel? Small but parallel, I'm sorry. Who do you already trust? Who's already aligned with your vision? Who could you walk this path with? Identify that person and have a conversation. Don't wait. Those are the steps. Build a community, diversify your income, create safe spaces, protect your mental health. Then ask yourself the tough questions. What can you build right now? And who can you build it with? That's how you start. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. Because once you take that first step, you're no longer fully owned by the system. You're carving out your own lane. You're building your own parallel life. And when enough of us do that, the system won't know what hit it. It won't know what hit it. All right, y'all, let's land this plane. We covered a lot today. The history, the necessity, the risks, the stories, the steps. But I want to make sure this sinks in. Building a parallel life does not mean running away. It does not mean packing your bags, fleeing the country, and never looking back. What it does mean is refusing to let America's system define every aspect of your survival. Because let's be honest, if you give this system full control, it will take every drop of your energy, every dollar of your money, every ounce of your spirit, and will still demand more. Parallel living says, no, you don't own me. So you don't get every part of me. I choose what belongs to me. So let's not forget, this is not a hopeless conversation. This is not doom and gloom. This is about hope. Because the minute you realize you don't have to play by every rule they set, you open up space for resilience. And resilience is not about being superhuman. Resilience is about refusing to give up. It's about finding cracks in the system and planting seeds in them until something new grows. And most importantly, resilience is about community. Because your community, your chosen family, your circle of trust, that's where the spark of a wonderful life comes back. That's where joy lives. That's where strength lives. That's where the power is. Don't underestimate what you and your people can build together, because that's the root of every parallel system that's ever survived. So I want to hear from you. Share with me how you've built or how you want to build your own parallel life. Are you a single mom hustling outside the 9 to 5? Do you and your neighbors pool money together to beat inflation? Have you built something online, a podcast, a platform, a community that gives you income and joy outside the system? Tell me your story, because your story might be the blueprint somebody needs. And if you haven't started yet, think about it. What would it look like for you to run alongside the system instead of inside of it? What would it look like to claim a piece of your life back from the grind? And don't forget, if you want more of these conversations, you can find me everywhere. Spotify, Patreon, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. I'm there. And every listen, every share, every comment, every piece of support, I appreciate it more than you know. You all make this work possible, and you keep these conversations alive. So let's close with this reminder. This isn't about leaving America. It's not about letting America own you. It's about carving out your space, protecting your joy, building your community, and living your life on your own terms. That's what a parallel life is. Not running away, but refusing to be defined by a system that was never built for your survival in the first place. And as always, I'm going to end this the way I always do. Don't let nobody live rent-free in your head. Don't feed the trolls. And you can accomplish anything you put your mind to as long as you stay consistent. Peace.